Hello and welcome to SAP TechEd 2020. My name is Alexander Knaus and I'm a security expert at SAP. This session will focus on security in a hybrid cloud landscape and how such a typical landscape could look like is depicted on this slide. On the upper left side in this diagram, we have the SAP Cloud Platform, which is an enterprise platform as a service offering that provides comprehensive application development services and capabilities, which lets you build, extend, and integrate business applications in the cloud. Usually, the applications and services running on the SAP Cloud Platform require to access remote services that run on the internet, like, for example, integrating and extending with cloud solutions from SAP, or services that run on-premise, like, for example, consuming data from another system. And exactly for these purposes, the SAP Cloud Platform offers the connectivity service. This service allows you to make connections to on-premise systems using the Cloud Connector, which you see here on the right side in the diagram. In a hybrid landscape, the Cloud Connector serves as a link between SAP Cloud Platform applications and services and on-premise systems, and is therefore a security-critical component which must be set up and operated securely. In the following, we will have a closer look at the SAP Cloud Platform and the Cloud Connector's most critical security settings and configurations based on best practices and findings from customer engagements. Let's start with the SAP Cloud Platform's critical security configurations, which are user management, authorizations, connectivity, and the audit log. And I will now show you how you can check these settings in the SAP Cloud Platform cockpit with a short demo.
What you see here is an SAP Cloud Platform Neo SAP account showing the platform users, are also called platform members of the SAP account. A platform user is a developer, administrator, or operator who deploys, administers, and troubleshoots applications and services in the SAP account. In the first line, you see a D user from the SAP ID service, which is indicated by the user base accounts.sap.com. D, I, and C users are SAP employees and should be removed from this member list once their work is completed. The second line shows a P user from an identity authentication service, which is indicated by the user base seresecurity.accounts.ondemand.com. This is a user from a customer-managed user base, which means that the customer has full control over this user. No issues with this one, as this is the recommended approach. The third line shows a P user from the SAP ID service. P users from the SAP ID service are public users and cannot be controlled by the customer. Therefore, public users must not be made members of sub-accounts. The fourth line shows an S user from the SAP ID service. As those users can only be partially managed by the customer, for example, there is no option to change the password policy for those users in the SAP ID service, it is recommended to create a user account for those users in an identity authentication service, which can be completely managed by the customer itself. And this brings us also to the next user management topic, which is the platform identity provider. This identity provider provides the user base for platform users and enables access to SAP Cloud Platform Cockpit and tools. Recommendation here is to use an identity authentication service as a platform identity provider, which comes with the advantage of having a fully controllable user base in place, where you can enforce your custom security configuration like two-factor authentication, password policies, proxy mode to a corporate identity provider, etc. The same recommendation also applies for a sub-account or organization in the SAP Cloud Platform Cloud Foundry environment. The application identity provider provides the user base for the end users and enables access to SAP Cloud Platform applications and services. Despite it is possible to configure any SAML 2.0 compliant IDP as an application identity provider in the Neo and Cloud Foundry environment, the recommendation is to use the identity authentication service as a central single sign-on endpoint for all SAP Cloud applications, which comes with several advantages like one single audit log for authentication for all those applications and services. So far, so good. Now let's check the authorization part and start with the individual user-to-role assignment. In the Neo environment, it is possible to directly assign a user to a role. An example for this would be here such an assignment in a service, and here I'm showing the portal service. These kind of manual assignments on one single role level can be done for testing purposes, but this is definitely not recommended for productive usage, as this approach does not work for a larger user base. Therefore, combine roles which belong together to a group, for example, roles for administrators, and then use the assertion-based groups approach to map a SAML group from your identity provider to an SAP Cloud Platform group. In the NEAR environment, the configuration is done in the Trust Management section of the application identity provider. Here, for example, you see that the SAML group administrators is mapped to the SAP Cloud Platform group admin. In the Cloud Foundry environment, this approach is called role collection mapping and can be configured in the trust configuration of the respective identity provider. Or by the role collections overview in the sub-account. As an alternative, you can also use the identity provisioning service to assign users from a source system based on a specific transformation to an SAP Cloud Platform group or role collection. The second part of the authorization section I want to highlight here is about critical scopes and permissions for platform users in the NEAR environment. Although platform roles are managed on a sub-account level, they technically belong to the global account of a region. This means if you change a platform role in one sub-account, it has also an impact on other sub-accounts, as the role repository is shared across all sub-accounts belonging to the same global account of a region. The platform scope, which allows a platform user to change platform roles, is the following here. Manage custom platform roles. Please note that this scope is part of the predefined administrator role, and therefore please do not assign this role to platform users in sub-accounts which are used for testing purposes. Recommendation here is to create a copy of this predefined administrator role, remove the critical scope from it, and then assign it to platform users in sub-accounts who need administrative access. Takeaway from this part is that every role containing this scope must be only assigned to platform users in a very restrictive manner. Okay, next topic is the connectivity section in the Cloud Cockpit, where you can already do some basic checks about your connected cloud connectors. Here, I'm in a sub-account of the NEAR environment, but the same view is also available in the Cloud Foundry environment. First, make sure that your cloud connectors are up to date. Only the most current version contains the latest set of security patches. To check if there is a new Cloud Connector version available, go to tools.hana.ondemand.com, jump to the Cloud section, and scroll down to the Cloud Connector. And here you see the latest version of it, which is 2.12.4. Back in our cockpit, we see that this Cloud Connector is on version 2.12.3, so we should better upgrade it very soon. The high availability configuration is also shown in the SAP Cloud Platform cockpit, and it seems that for this Cloud Connector, high availability was not set up so far. For non-productive scenarios, this is okay, but for productive ones, it is highly recommended to operate the Cloud Connector in high availability mode, where you have a second redundant shadow instance of the Cloud Connector in place, which takes over if the leading Cloud Connector, called master instance, for some reasons is not in an operative state anymore, for example because of a network or hardware failure. Last topic for the SAP Cloud Platform is the audit log. It is important that you regularly back up the audit logs, as they are not available forever on the SAP Cloud Platform. For the NEAR environment, the default retention period is 201 days, and this period can even be extended by using the audit log retention API. For the Cloud Foundry environment, the retention period is 30 days and cannot be extended at this point in time. A technical prerequisite for fetching and backing up the audit logs on a regular basis is for the NEAR environment a respective platform API OAuth client. With such a client containing the scopes read audit logs and manage audit logs, you are able to access the audit logs of a sub-account with the audit log retrieval API and can change the retention period of audit logs with the audit log retention API. In the Cloud Foundry environment, there are two options available to get access to the audit log. First option is the same like for the NEAR environment, the audit log retrieval API. Prerequisite for fetching the audit log via this API is an audit log management service instance with a service key containing the client credentials. Second option is the audit log viewer application. Prerequisite here is a role collection containing the audit log auditor role and the app identifier audit log management and audit log viewer, which needs to be assigned to users who want to access the audit log viewer application. Those technical prerequisites can be also used as a first check if someone is taking care about the audit logs in your SAP Cloud Platform sub-accounts.
That's it for the short and quick overview about security configurations in the SAP Cloud Platform, and now let's go ahead with the Cloud Connector. Here, the security settings I want to highlight are user management, backend communication, audit log and trace, high availability, and access control. Let's check these settings in the Cloud Connector administration UI with a short demo.
After new installation of the Cloud Connector, a file-based user management is used by default, which comes with only one administrator user. As an alternative, it is highly recommended to enable the LDAP-based user management for the Cloud Connector to allow only named administrator users to log on to the administration UI. This guarantees traceability of the Cloud Connector configuration changes via the Cloud Connector audit log. Next topic is about establishing a secure communication channel to the backend systems, and here I want to focus on the HTTPS connections. Prerequisite for establishing such secure connections is to set up mutual authentication between the Cloud Connector and the backend system. For that, you can import an X509 client certificate into the Cloud Connector, which is then used as the so-called system certificate for all HTTPS requests to backends that request or require a client certificate. This means that the CA, which signed the Cloud Connector's client certificate, needs to be trusted by all backend systems to which the Cloud Connector is supposed to connect. With this, one part of the trust can be established, namely the backend system trusts the Cloud Connector. But we also need to establish a trust the other way around. By default, the Cloud Connector trusts every on-premise system when connecting to it via HTTPS, and as this is definitely not something we want to allow from a security perspective, you can configure a trust store in the Cloud Connector that acts as a whitelist of trusted on-premise systems represented by their respective public keys, which you can upload here. By the way, this trust setup is also a prerequisite for configuring principal propagation, which requires a certificate authority configuration and a subject pattern configuration in addition, which you find directly below the mutual authentication settings. One little hint regarding the encryption I want to mention here is the cipher suites configuration of the Cloud Connector, because there seems to be a common misunderstanding about it. So The set of allowed encryption ciphers, which you can configure here based on your company's security policy, is not related to the connection from the Cloud Connector to the backend, but related to the connection between your browser and the Cloud Connector when accessing the Cloud Connector administration UI, what you see here right now. Let's go ahead with the audit logging, which must remain switched on during the time the Cloud Connector is used with productive systems. The default audit level is security. Set it to all if required by your company policy so that for every received request, regardless of whether it was allowed to pass or not, a corresponding audit entry is written. The administrators who are responsible for running a Cloud Connector must ensure that the audit log files are properly archived to conform to the local regulations. Also make sure that audit logging in the connected backend system is also switched on. Next important setting is the trace configuration, which must be turned off during productive usage and may only be turned on for troubleshooting purposes, as traces by nature contain sensitive data. Last topic are the access control capabilities of the Cloud Connector. The Cloud Connector allows you to define fine-grained access to backend resources, so please make use of it. Let's have a look at an example for an HTTPS connection. Bad practice is the first line you see here, which means that everything on this backend can be accessed by applications and services of the corresponding sub-account. Let's deactivate this line now. And follow the best practice, which is to only expose the services on the backend which are really required by the apps and services running on the SAP Cloud Platform, which you see here below. But besides the access control capabilities towards the backend, you can also define a whitelist of applications and services of the sub-account which you explicitly want to allow to access the exposed backend resources.
That's it for the short and quick overview about security configurations in the Cloud Connect Administration UI, and I hope that you got an impression in that short period of time about what are the critical and important settings and configurations of the SAP Cloud Platform and Cloud Connector you should take a look at. Check out the slide deck of this session to find related SAP TechEd sessions and to find out how you can continue your learning experience from SAP TechEd with the SAP Learning Hub. Having said this, thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of SAP TechEd 2020.